Well, Ashwings, as we continue our journey in through the next set for Flesh and Blood's The Hunted, I think it's time we take a look at some cards that you might want to pick up before the set comes out. But do be aware that a lot of these prices are currently quite inflated. So take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt, but I do want to at least let you know some cards that should be picked up if you do not own them already. That way you can go ahead and play any of these heroes if you wish to play any of these at their most optimal. So let's get into it. Today, we're talking a little bit about The Hunted. Now, these are some cards that you should look to get before The Hunted comes out, but of course, don't buy anything at an inflated price, and at the end of the day, if you can't afford a card, don't worry about it. There are plenty of budget ways to play heroes, so do make sure that if you are going to purchase any of these cards, know that currently at this very moment, even though we don't know how to mark heroes or how to do any special cool tricks with cards that have yet to be spoiled that are happening in January, just based on the hero powers alone, as well as the overall classes and talents given to these heroes, I think it's important to check out a few cards that you might want to pick up for yourself. And that way, if you happen to get them before they become crazy, crazy hype, then that's good. But if you don't want to pick them up now because they're too expensive, don't worry about it. In most cases, at some point in the lifespan of Flesh and Blood, the cards will go down in price, whether that be through a reprint of some kind or maybe the card just isn't as good as it initially was. There's a lot of speculation on a lot of these cards, including the one that we're looking at here, Infiltrate. Infiltrate is, we're going to look at the assassin cards first, and then we're going to kind of move into Fang, the Draconic Warrior, and then we're going to move into Syndra, the Draconic Ninja. So let's go ahead and take a quick look here. Infiltrate, this is a card that I think a lot of people expected new to be running a lot of, and it didn't do anything in new because there's no real way to do a lot of go again in new. But of course it also has to hit. So it's coming in as a 0 for 3, as on rate as any of these stealth cards are, but it has to hit in order for this card to banish the top card of the deck, and then you may play it until the end of your next turn. So whether it be a D-react or it be an attack reaction that you can utilize on your attack, you have options for it. But of course, this does have to hit. Now, it does force a card out of your opponent's hand or forces them to block in a certain way. And in new, this does allow you to banish cards that block it, which is not too bad. But for Arachne, I think this is going to be great because Arachne's ability does state that if you're attacking a marked hero, with a stealth card, you're going to be getting +1 on it. And if it hits, it gets go again. So now not only are you threatening the on hit, you're also giving it a breakpoint. And, if they're marked, if it hits, you're going to get go again, which means you're going to be able to play that card that they have. The downside to Infiltrate here is that you can play the card that they have that you banish until the end of your next turn, but that card you do have to pay a cost for. So I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be something to run, but right now I know it's been pretty inflated in price, as you can tell. I don't know that it's going to be like the bee's knees in this situation because, again, New can play cards from her opponent's banish zone for free with her hero ability. Arachne cannot. So Infiltrate is certainly something that I think you could see have value, especially if you're trying to close out a game or trying to utilize your opponent's tactics against them, depending on what you get. But with Infiltrate, it's kind of tough. So I don't know if I'd buy it at $8.49, but if you're missing copies, you can certainly pick them up. But just know that, a month ago, this card was $1.97. So maybe wait. Next, we're going to move on to Just a Nick. Now, Just a Nick has seen a huge spike in price simply because it is probably, by and large, the best assassin attack reaction right now. Just a Nick just it turns all of your blue stealth cards into 6 power attacks with an on hit to banish the top card of your opponent's deck. It costs you nothing to play it. It blocks 3, and it's just incredibly powerful. So you'll see there's been a big spike here. And then obviously the rainbow foils and it looks like just the near mint copies, the regular copies of these are $24 right now, which is just kind of insane. It's wild to think that $25 for an attack reaction, but again, in Assassin, you're trying to go tall, and especially if you can play Justinic on another card that we're going to talk about later, Persuasive Prognosis. If you play Justinic on a Persuasive and then you discard a Assassin card to use one of the Agent of Chaos's abilities, have that come in for 9, plus any additional on hits, Persuasive is going to be able to banish the top card of a deck, get a action card from their hand, and also other things. So Justinic is certainly a powerful attack reaction. And again, it costs 0. It blocks for 3. It turns all your blues into really, really powerful cards. So I think it's definitely something that's going to be utilized in a stealth-based deck. So keep your eye out for this one here. $24 though, I mean, like, obviously that's pretty steep, but I do think that there is a reason. Assassin is usually the most expensive out of the heroes to build, simply because a lot of these cards tend to really go up in price. But Justinic, very good card. Definitely a pickup if you have not gotten them already. Even if you just get one, it's a great start, and you'll be able to start throwing those in there. But again, a lot of this is hype, so if you want to wait, you can wait. Persuasive Prognosis. So this is for a damaged version. I don't know why there's so many damaged versions on the market, but it's about $15 for Persuasive Prognosis. So $15 for this card. Persuasive Prognosis on its face seems like it does a lot. You don't get the additional benefit of having your stealth cards banish cards that are blocking it like you would in new, but Persuasive Prognosis, especially paired with that Justinic, you're able to come in for 6 damage on hit, banish the top card, and then look at your opponent's hand and banish a card as well of the same color. Now, if they don't have the same color, you can't banish anything, right? So it's unfortunate. But if you do get to banish cards from your opponent's hand, it's always good. And in most cases, the majority of a color that's in your opponent's deck is usually also in their hand. Whether it be a red or a blue, whatever it might be, you're able to get something out of their hand. And Persuasive Prognosis is just really good in that regard. So, not to mention, again, it's an assassin card. You're able to discard it to utilize something like the Agent of Chaos abilities. And again, anything that can banish cards from your opponent's hand are pretty good. Next, we're going to take a look at Bonds of Agony, another $15 Majestic from Part the Mistveil. Now, this one is very interesting because the thing that made Bonds of Agony really, really good and new is the fact that both the Mystic Assassin arms, Arousing Wave, and the Mystic Assassin legs, the Undertow Stiletto, both of those technically counted as 2 attack reactions. Right, you attack reacted to destroy it and get a slither, and then you played a slither as a second attack reaction, and then you could play something like a Siren's Call or a Mask of Recurring Nightmares to do for that third, and Bonds of Agony would be online. Playing 3 attack reactions in Arachne might not be as easy. Sure, whenever you are a Agent of Chaos, you have, well, at least depending on the Agent of Chaos you have an attack reaction effect that you can utilize as one of the reactions. But in order to do that, you need to discard an entire card from your hand. So it's very unique in how this works. And I do believe that this works so much better in new than it does in Arachne. But if you're able to get a couple other attack react cards off, if there's like a special attack react weapon or an attack react legendary piece that comes in for assassin, through this, then Bonds of Agony could see more play. But I think from this, it's so much harder to get Bonds of Agony off in another hero because you have to play so many other like 0 cost attack reacts and then have everything there still, which is just like a downright shame. But luckily, with Bonds of Agony, it's good for new. If you haven't picked any up already, I suggest doing so, because they're only going to go up. This card is just like, you can slam this card down, and even if you don't have the attack reactions, this card is threatening, and sometimes will get 3 cards out of your opponent's hand, and you could be bluffing and not have the attack reactions. But just know that it's going to be a lot easier to read in Arachne than it is going to be in like new. So that's Bonds of Agony there. Now, hear me out, right? Before you get crazy. Codex of Frailty. Now, I'm not saying that it's necessary that you buy this, but it is a card that you should buy if you are looking to get into Assassin and or Ranger. And simply because I don't think this card is going to be going down anytime soon. We see that there's only 8 listings of it on the market right now. So there's really not a whole lot left. And like, we're talking like near mint copies. Outsiders is not really opened in mass, which is kind of feels bad, but Codex of Frailty is just like so good. Now, I have a theory that Codex of Frailty is going to get a reprint in either a non-foil version of itself or an alternate art rainbow foil version of itself in the gem packs that are coming out with the Hunted. Obviously, this is a theory. None of that is confirmed to be true at all, so don't take my word on that. But if you want to play Assassin day 1 and play Arachne day 1, you're going to want to run Codex of Frailty. And if you run Codex of Frailty, it means you're going to have to pay the cost. Again, even if you get one of them, $83 is not terrible, but the problem here is that there's not a lot of them on the market. 8 listings is all they have. And like this listing, obviously, you don't buy them for $200. And this listing is probably your best bet, but with a 0% feedback and 211 sales, I definitely don't think that it's a good call to buy from this person. So I would ask your locals. I would ask other confirmed, like really well established sellers before buying anything like that. So that's Codex of Frailty. Again, this card's like insane and it's almost necessary in every single Assassin deck. I wouldn't be surprised if Arachne also runs Codex of Frailty. So now we're going to go into like the typical 3. It's pretty much the only contract cards you're ever going to see in this Arachne deck from what I can assume. You'll probably only really see 2 of them, but Leave No Witnesses is one of them here. This card shot up to about $30. It used to be down to like $13. Now it's up at like 30. And this is just because this is Command and Conquer. If you don't have Command and Conquer, it comes in for a breakpoint, so at least threatens a piece of equipment and a card from hand, or sometimes 2 cards from hand. You can obviously pump it with the Agents of Chaos to bring it up to something like 7, which is significantly more cards to take from your opponent. And you destroy your opponent's banish, or you banish your opponent's arsenal, and then you also get to banish the top card of their deck. And if either of them are red, you get a silver for each one. So tons of value there if you're planning on running something like Black Tex or Mask of Perdition or something of the sort. You have that available. But I think Leave No Witnesses is definitely like a big pick. I guess there's also supposed to be some kind of contract support that's going to be coming out in this set. So in the Hunted more specifically. So if that is going to happen, then I do think that this is something to look into, because this could just get more powerful. Speaking of powerful ones, this one is not run nearly as much as the others are, but Eradicate I think is a fantastic card, especially if it's like the only one you can think. If you're just like, yeah, I can't afford Leave No Witnesses, I can't afford Surgical Extractions, right? Eradicate's so cool because it on hit, you banish at the top X cards of your opponent's deck, and where X is the damage dealt by this card. So if you're able to come in for 4 and your opponent blocks for 6, and then you double pump to bring it to like, I don't know, 10, you're going to banish the top 4 cards off your opponent's deck. Now, while that's a lot for like 4 damage, 4 cards off your opponent's deck could be the reason they fatigue into you. And I feel like that's going to be kind of important if you're trying to play like a long game into some of these heroes. Some heroes really stack their deck well, or pitch stack their deck well, to know what's going to be on top and what's going to be available during that second cycle. So if you come in with Eradicates, or, you know, even if they come in and they're just like, oh, I don't care about 4, you know, cards, you can come in and pump it. And if you banish the top like 10 cards of your opponent's deck, it's a different game. It is a different game entirely. Like, you can't not lose 1/6 of your deck to 1 card. That is, the amount of value you get out of that is just bonkers. So Eradicate, definitely a great card to pick up if you don't have them already. But of course, you can also go with Surgical Extraction. Now, this one probably doesn't need as much use. It does actually go after cards in the hand. You get to banish the top card of their deck and then look at their hand and banish a card when it hits. So significantly more overall value for, you know, shutting down your opponent's next turn. Let's say they had a lot going on. You can shut down their turn pretty hard. But with Surgical, you know, again, it's $18 for a lightly played copy. There's not many on the listings here. $20 almost. You pretty much have to get to the point where you're getting $20 for Surgical Extraction. So it might be too expensive, but it is a good card to pick up if you don't have one. Then we're going to talk a little bit about equipment, and we'll be real quick about this stuff. I suggest getting at least one of each of these Widow equipment pieces from Rosetta. Super cheap equipment. It's effectively Arcane Barrier 1 and then also Spell Void 1. So it's great for like a super uber defensive value into arcane decks like Runeblade or Wizard. I think that it's a great pick if you're looking for some kind of Arcane Barrier. You know, it's significantly better than running something like Null Rune or something of the sort. So I definitely suggest picking one of these up over that. And then so just get them all. You're probably not going to run all of them, but at least having one of each, so that way you know you can put them in there. And fun fact, I think the cold foils are only like $10, $15 for each of these. So if you're trying to bling out a deck, you can go with that too. Next, we want to talk about Flick Knives. Technically, I'm going to bring this up for Syndra as well, but Flick Knives has gone up pretty quick here. Again, it's an attack reaction. You can pay 0. Target dagger you control that isn't on the active chain link deals 1 damage to target hero. And if that damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, and then you destroy the dagger. So this is a great way to kind of close out games. You know, you're effectively always going to be floating 2 daggers. And in most cases, those 2 daggers are going to be the, okay, well, now they have to like super uber block when they get down to like 5 health. Because as you continue to leak damage through, Flick Knives could quite literally just be like, oh, okay, there you go. Boom, hit them with the knife, and then they're done. So Flick Knives is going to be really powerful. And then, you know, obviously you have cards like Concealed Blade, which I don't think are going to be run. But Flick Knives is going to be really good for Syndra as well, but we'll get to her later. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the knives here. So Outsiders, there were 2 different knives that came out here. They're technically 3. With Orbita class, but I think these 2 are probably the most important. Nerve Scalpel being a card that cares about reaction cards, so that's defense reactions and attack reactions. So if you play this along with something like a Spider's Bite or whatever new dagger we're going to be getting, this could very well be great into heroes that like to block really well. You know, you have the Earth heroes with Rootbound Carapace, you have warriors with reactions that they tend to block with. Even assassins tend to block with reactions. And so being able to throw this out, it certainly presents a lot more. And it's got piercing, which is good. Scale Peeler is the same deal except for equipment. So if this hits their equipment, blocks for 1 less. So, and next time they defend with 1 or more equipment this turn, those equipment have -1 while defending. So same concept overall. It still costs you 2 to come in for 1 damage, but this is good into Guardians, into any hero that's running a lot of like armor or planning on blocking with armor. You're getting a lot of value by attacking with Scale Peeler. It also is really good into like Warriors, for instance, because Warriors might want to block with something like Valiant Dynamo, and Scale Peeler will just go, okay, well, no, like you're not gonna want to do that. So great card, honestly. And those are probably the only 2 daggers I'd recommend to get outside of whatever's coming in the Hunted. And then obviously something like Spider's Bite's probably pretty good. All right, let's talk a little bit about FaB now. Now, FaB is going to rely heavily on the cards that are coming out in the Hunted, because we do not have any Draconic Warrior cards. We have Draconic cards and we have Warrior cards, but we do not have Draconic Warrior cards. So we're going to rely a lot on the cards that come out. But as for Draconic and or Warrior cards, we do have some good choices here. We know that FaB's probably going to be doing something alongside of dual wielding daggers. And because of that, you're expecting to attack with both of those daggers and not just with like one sword. And so because of that, Blade Flurry is really good here because it's going to pump up your weapon attacks. Your first weapon attack is going to get +2 in the reaction step. And then your next weapon attack is going to get +2 as well. So that's going to matter a lot. $25 for a copy here. Again, these reactions are incredibly powerful, and this might just be hype pricing, but because Warrior is kind of like not super great right now, so I think a lot of people are expecting Warrior to get kind of better. So Blade Flurry, definitely something people are looking to pick up. Commanding Performance, very interesting card. I don't see too many people talk about here. $10. It costs you 1 resource to play it, and it says your next Warrior attack this turn gets +3. And then until the end of turn, your Warrior attacks get, when this is defended by 1 or more attack action cards, destroy a card in the defending hero's arsenal. So it just needs to be defended. Doesn't need to worry about hitting or anything. As long as it's defended by 1 or more attack action cards, so essentially just a card from hand, you destroy a card in the defending hero's arsenal. So incredibly powerful. And that happens when it gets defended with that. So it immediately will destroy that arsenal. If that arsenal is like a sink below or something, it'll get destroyed. And more importantly, it pumps the next Warrior attack, but this effect stacks for the entirety of the game, right? Until the end of your turn, when your Warrior attacks get this. So if the first one doesn't end up going through, and there's some way to get another card in arsenal beforehand, this is just like arsenal destruction on I don't know, some kind of insane adrenaline boosting drug. Commanding Performance, pretty good. $10. Again, this is spiking pretty heavily, so I do suggest probably picking that up before it gets too crazy. Glint of Quicksilver, definitely a fun card. I don't believe that the daggers that FaB is going to use are going to have Go Again naturally. So something like Glint of Quicksilver is going to be really great because you're going to be able to swing it, and then you can go ahead and give it Go Again with Glint of Quicksilver. And then, of course, if there's a reprise effect, if they choose to block that, you can go ahead and then just give the reprise effect to draw a card, which is always really good in a dual wielding scenario. You want to get more cards. So Glint of Quicksilver, it's only $4 for the HP1 version of it. So good to go there. But yeah, not bad. I'd say it's a great pickup. It's really about $5, I guess, after this and everything here, but picking up a playset of these is going to be pretty good, and it might help you kind of push that forward. Spoils of War. This is, of course, another Warrior staple. It's about $8 for the white border version of it. Next weapon attack this turn gets +2 and Go Again. Again, I'm not sure that these daggers that FaB is going to be using are going to have Go Again naturally, so having them get a way to get Go Again is going to be very helpful towards their overall game plan. And then, of course, in this situation, you get to make Copper. Now, Copper probably doesn't matter a whole lot to a Royal Draconic Warrior, but any opportunity you have to create items to filter your hand, should you need it, I think is a pretty good spot to be in. So, especially when you can utilize things like Flamescale Furnace in this deck, which obviously we we'll get to in a sec here. Then let's talk about Unsheathed. Unsheathed, again, another $10 card here. I believe this came out in Rosetta. Yep, Rosetta. $12 really in a way. Unsheathed seems to be really great because, again, if this dagger comes in for, like, even if it comes in for 2, if you play Unsheathed, your next... Oh, you know what? This is Swords. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Get that out of here. Get it if you're going to play Swords, Swords Fang. But it only cares about Swords, so don't worry about all that. Unless you're going to play, like, Centauri Saber Fang. Uprising, +4, or essentially +4, but it's an action card. This does not see nearly any use at all, but it's a draconic action that says your next 4 draconic attacks this turn get +1. This is also going to be very good for Syndra, I think, personally. It blocks 3/0 draconic card, and then it makes sure that it pumps up all your draconic attacks, so that's your draconic daggers as well, and everything gets +1. So sometimes that turns all these 0 for 3s into 0 for 4s. It turns the 0 for 4s into 0 for 5s, like Blaze Headlong. It's very, very powerful, and I think when utilized in the right turn, especially if you can draw cards, you're going to see a lot of value out of it. So obviously, a lot of people say the same because it's spiking pretty bit. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into the equipment here. Pretty standard warrior stuff. Grains of Blood Spill is going to be great for whenever a weapon attack you control hits. You can pay 1 resource, and if you do, you create a Vigor token. Vigor is always going to be great, especially if you're trying to utilize your resources to get attack reactions off. Grains of Blood Spill is going to be a great way for if you happen to have an additional resource to just get you a Vigor token. It's going to be good. And especially since you'll have 2 weapons, technically, you can create 2 of the Vigor from this, because it's not a once per turn action. So not too terrible, and it's got temper too. Another card to look at is, of course, a Valiant Dynamo. If you are playing daggers or 2, one-handed weapons, Valiant Dynamo is a fantastic leg piece for you. It's got Battle Worn 1, but of course, at the beginning of your end phase, if you have attacked 2 or more times with weapons this turn, you may remove a -1 counter from Valiant Dynamo. So essentially, if you're going to be attacking with both of your weapons pretty frequently, Valiant Dynamo is just going to keep refreshing this 1 point of value, and that is a game changer overall. I mean, there's a reason this card's $111 for the unlimited rainbow foil version. This card has it was down low for a while there, actually, but it's just climbed back up now that we know that Fang's going to be utilizing 2 daggers. So a lot of copies still available at 33 listings. But you could probably nab this from a local for about like $95, which is not terrible. So I do also want to point out that the first edition cold foil versions, which are the rarest versions of these cards, are $4 more than the rainbow foil. So buy the cold foil if you can, because the cold foil is the rarest version of the card, and regardless of whether or not you're going to use it, as long as you double sleeve it or you keep it in a snap case, it'll still maintain its peak version of itself, and you'll have the rarest version of the card on the market. So Valiant Dynamo, great pickup there. And then finally, Flamescale Furnace. Again, this is a draconic equipment that allows you to get Temper 2, and once per turn you can pay a resource to gain a resource for each red card in your pitch zone. Then you activate this ability only if you've played a red card this turn. So these talented warriors, like Bolton, for instance, tend to run red attack they tend to run attack actions as well as swing with their weapons. So it's only assumed that that's going to be the same case for Fang. And a lot of these draconic attacks like Blaze Headlong and Liquefy, and the ones that I'm sure are going to be coming out in the Hunted, the draconic warrior stuff, if it's going to be draconic warrior attack actions, you're going to be playing red cards. And if you're playing red cards, Flamescale Furnace is an opportunity for you to gain additional resources if you happen to be like red card, like you pitch several reds and you draw into a card that allows you to get some additional value. But Because of the hype, $88 for a flame scale furnace. Again, it used to be down at 35 just 3 months ago, but now it's back up to 82. So that goes to show you that the second that these Draconic heroes got announced, it just shot back up in price, and now it's sitting at 88 for a rainbow foil. I don't believe the cold foils are probably pretty expensive now. Yeah, cold foils are about 118, so give or take, but still definitely a great pickup, especially if you're also interested in eventually picking up probably, we're not sure if she's going to use it, but any other Draconic heroes in the future. This is just like a really good legendary chess piece, so I always recommend it. All right, and then last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about Syndra. So Syndra, the Draconic Ninja, that's coming out in here in the Hunted. This is there's the least amount of cards that I could find here for it, and I'm sure there's just more stuff that a lot of other heroes utilize a lot better. I don't know how much of like the combo or the tiger stuff that's out in Majestic is going to be utilized in Syndra, but at least knowing what we know about Draconic heroes and how they want things to be Draconic, and they want several chains or several chain links in a combat chain. We know that cards like Double Strike are going to be really important. The fact this card is still $5 is mind-blowing to me, but I guess it is significantly less compared to what it was previously at $1. So if you have extra copies of Double Strike laying around, I suggest selling them. But if you're looking to pick them up, $5 a piece for a card that effectively counts for 2 chain links, and both of those chain links could be Draconic. If you're able to make them Draconic, it's amazing. So Double Strike definitely good, especially if you're running Mask of Momentum. Very powerful card. Then obviously we take a look at Spreading Flames. Spreading Flames is just gonna be gas in this deck strictly because Syndra is going to be using Draconic daggers, and Spreading Flames looks for Draconic attacks. So Draconic attacks you control have +1, while their base power is less than the number of Draconic chain links you control. So if these daggers come in for 1, then if you play Spreading Flames for 3 and then come in with a dagger, that dagger will actually have 2 damage going through instead of 1. And then the next dagger will have another 2. So it's a nice buff to your daggers. And then, of course, by the time you get to the 4th and the 5th chain, those cards will have significantly more power added onto them by that +1, adding in things like breakpoints and other fun goodies. So I think Spreading Flames is a great pickup. Obviously, $6 is just like so cheap for this right now. So I definitely suggest going to pick this up if you don't already have your play sets. You FI enjoyers, you know who I'm talking to. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So $3 Majestic headpiece. If you can't afford the headpiece we're going to talk about in a bit, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is still a great option, simply because the point of most of these Draconic Ninjas, at least, is to go crazy wide. And going wide allows you to utilize things like Mask of the Pouncing Lynx to go get things like Tenacity, or even Salt the Wound. That's another thing. You know what? We're going to look up Tenacity as well, because we're right here. Tenacity. That's another card that I just completely forgot existed until just now. Tenacity is a generic action, which is probably why I completely forgot to see it. But Tenacity, $6.18. When this attacks, it gets +X, where X is the number of defending cards in the combat chain. So theoretically, if your opponent blocks a lot, and you're like 4 combat chains in, if they blocked with like 4 cards or 5 cards with like equipment and stuff like that, you can go ahead and get this card. If you're able to get even leak 1 damage through, you can get the Tenacity out and then have this come in for like 7. A 0 for 7 is really good. Or you can play Salt the Wound, which does effectively the opposite. It cares for how many times you've hit, and then you're able to pump that damage over and buff up Salt the Wound to do that. But you're also going to want to pick up some Ancestral Empowerments, because drawing cards is so good And being able to have these ninja attack actions get an additional +1 just to kind of push it over a little bit, and get any of those like on hits, especially when you're going to be working with something like the next card we're going to be looking at. The headpiece for Ninja really cares a lot about those on hits because it helps trigger that chain. So Ancestral Empowerment is a great attack reaction for Ninja. $4 for this one, for the white border one. You know, you might not want to run 3, you might want to run 2, but even still, it's do this, draw a card, get to continue going with your chain. And you might be looking for a blue. You might be trying to like search for a blue, and at least you know that this just draws a card off when you play it. So Ancestral Empowerment, very good. Then we move into Mask of Momentum. Probably the main reason why things like that are really good is because Mask of Momentum, a once per turn effect when an attack action card you control is the 3rd or higher chain link in a row to hit, draw a card. So this doesn't count your weapon attack on the 3rd or higher, right? So if you attack with 2 attack actions and then a weapon, if those 2 attack actions hit and then your weapon hits, you don't get a card. But if you attack with both of your weapons first and then attack with an attack action, you will get a card. So that is the important thing to keep in mind there. It's got Blade Break 2, and again, threatening card draw is like pretty detrimental. I mean, like if you're able to draw 1 additional card every turn, your chain links get to go from like, 2 to 3 to like 4 to 5, maybe even 6 chain links. And with Ninja no longer having access to anything like Art of War and CC, Mask of Momentum, you just want to take all the card draw you possibly can, and Mask of Momentum is going to be the place to do it for sure. So love this here. $76 for the white border one though definitely has jumped up in price because I bought it back this when it was $35 for that, and now it's rocked up to a whopping $77 for a white bordered version of them. But of course, I think in this rate, you're almost getting the same price as you would a black border version from WTR. So I do suggest probably just buying that instead because it's rainbow foil and it'll be, rarer in the sense and probably more sought after if you end up wanting to sell the card. But that's Mask of Momentum. Obviously, Tiger Stripe Shuko is in a very weird spot right now. The cold foils are going for nearly as much as the rainbow foils are. Tiger Stripe Shuko, an incredibly powerful card in Zen right now, and Zen obviously just like rocking face as far as the tournament scene goes and the meta for Classic Constructed. But Tiger Stripe Shuko, especially if your daggers are coming in for small amounts, and I'd imagine a lot of your attacks are coming in for small amounts, Tiger Stripe Shuko is going to be able to really allow for some of these additional things to work here. You could even also, I don't know how you'd go about recurring them, but like you could utilize Phoenix Flames in Syndra. I'm sure if you utilize things like Inflame, stuff like that, you could probably use Phoenix Flames in Syndra. And that would also be a great target for Tiger Stripe Shuko to just buff it by 1. Have those Phoenix Flames come in for 2 and unpreventable damage. Again, currently at this moment of recording the video, Enigma is still a problem. So with any of your cards that say deal unpreventable damage, you're going to want to run them because it's incredibly important into the game plan of beating out an Enigma. And then finally, of course, Flick Knives again. Syndra is able to recur her knives from her graveyard, much like how FaB is able to get Phoenix Flames to his hand from his graveyard. And I believe that Flick Knives is just a great way for you to utilize an additional attack. You can, at the end of when you're coming in for that last card in your chain, you can react a Flick Knives, swing an additional 1, and then your next turn can just be Draconic, get a dagger back, dagger, finisher, Flick Knives, swing, dagger. And that's a lot. So I'm not sure how often that's going to occur, but I think Flick Knives, even if you're just able to ping 1, make sure one thing hits frequently enough, it's going to be enough to where Flick Knives is going to get a lot of value out of it. And if Flick Knives even deals like, 8 to 10 damage in the matter of a game, that's a game changing card. And so that's why it's looking at about $60 for this here. So that is everything I have for the cards you should be looking for the Hunted. I know a lot of them were fairly expensive. I know that, again, hype prices are pretty bad. Nobody really likes to pay for the hype. And I feel that. I definitely don't want anybody to do that. So again, if any of these cards are way too expensive, don't worry about it. At some point, we're gonna find out where these heroes stand. Currently, we're still in an era where parts of Mistvale heroes are still doing like the best in the format. And so because of that, these heroes might not even see the light of day until, Enigma leaves or Zen leaves. And then it's like, okay, can we deal with literally just new, and that be like our only problem? So I think it's going to be an interesting one. Again, you don't have to buy into the hype. I say if any of those cards were like $10 or less, buying into them is a pretty good deal. But again, play how you want to play it. Start by playing it with a bunch of bulk first. And then we also don't know any of the cards that are coming out in the Hunted as far as the legendaries or more majestics that are coming out of there. I can only assume that obviously there's going to be support for the 3 heroes in the set. So many of these cards may even see replacements, right? Mask of Momentum may be replaced with a Draconic headpiece that cares about something else. There may be a Draconic leg piece for Warrior that cares a lot about, giving your weapons go again or something. There's plenty of things that could possibly happen still within the Hunted, as we don't know any spoilers for the legendaries or the fabled or the other majestics in the set. We pretty much just know what the heroes do, and that's where most of my predictions are based off of, is that. But of course, feel free to make your own speculations, your own decisions when purchasing cards, and feel free to let me know in the comments down below how I did. Are you looking to pick any of these cards up for yourself? Are you looking to wait till the hype dies down? Are you looking to possibly just skip these heroes altogether because you're playing a different class? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And while you're down there, make sure to go ahead and push that like button for me. You can also go ahead and subscribe to the channel as well. And if you want to support the channel in a different way, in a more loving way, you can do so by becoming a channel member. Our channel members do get access to our podcast, The Common Language, a week earlier than everyone else does. And then also on top of it, I do have loyalty badges and emotes. And then eventually we're going to be doing some channel member giveaways for our channel members as well, coming in 2025. So I really hope to be doing something like that for them and showing my appreciation. So if you do become a channel member, thank you so much. But even if you just subscribe to the channel, I appreciate you, and I hope that you enjoyed the content that you watched today. So thank you so much, and I hope you continue having fun in the flesh and blood, and I will see you all in the Hunted.